on my own again tonight. Scott has other commitments this evening, and I also decided that I would just kind of like to have another crack at doing this on my own, because I got some some quite good feedback last time. So thank you for everyone who passed that my way. That was very, very reassuring. I'm really looking forward to tonight actually, and to talking to you guys a little bit about the topic that I've chosen for tonight, which, as you may have seen, is gratitude, which I'm sure we're all familiar with in some form or another, but we'll get into that in a moment. While I wait to see if anyone else is going to jump in, I guess I'll just check in with the for anyone who stuck around till the end of last week with Scott and I decided that I was going to do at least 3 longer meditations this week, and just report back as to what happened and how I went with that, which I did, thankfully. They were about 30 minutes rather than 40 minutes. I did say 40 minutes, but 30 minutes felt like quite long enough for 2 out of 3. Hello, Prue, thanks for joining. And yeah, they went pretty well, but what I found was that I actually ended up, I was much more difficult than I was anticipating. I found it very, 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 very uncomfortable to sit for that long, uninterrupted. And a couple of times I actually, thanks for tuning in, Jazza. Couple of times I actually ended up putting intervals on my timer as well, so just to reassure my mind that that time was indeed passing, that I was wasn't just floating aimlessly in emptiness, which is what it felt a little bit like at points. But yes, I did it. It was weird. I'm going to try and do it again. Hopefully push it at that 40-minute mark this time, but we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to start off this week the same way that we start off every week. Hey Rob, nice to join us. I'm going to start this week the same to invite everybody to sit in silence for a few minutes. Again, as I'm using, same as last time that I did this on my own, I am using my phone obviously to record, so I don't have a timer, so I will vaguely be keeping an eye on the time. But the invitation is just to join me, to join us, and to just sit in silence and notice what comes up, or to also incorporate any other meditation techniques or practices that you have used in the past, whether that's following your breath or body scanning or anything else for that matter. So without further ado, let us sit in silence together for just a few minutes and just notice what's alive right now. I'll see you in a moment. And very gently and slowly, you can start to bring yourself back up into the room. You may like to leave your eyes closed. You may like to open them. It's entirely up to you, as it were. But regardless of which way you decide, thank you for joining me in that little meditation. It's always super, super lovely. Oh, hello, Raphael. Welcome. And yes, so the topic I wanted to talk a bit about today was and still is gratitude. And I've been thinking about this a lot this week. And the thing that's kind of, I guess, the first place to start, I guess, is some gratitude. I think is something that most of us are pretty familiar with. I don't think I've ever met anyone who has never encountered the concept before. But it's basically a sense of, just for the sake of making sure that we know we're all on the same page. Gratitude is essentially a sense of deep appreciation or thankfulness for anything really. It doesn't necessarily have to be directed at anything. For anything really, it doesn't necessarily have to be directed at anything. It's just a sense of appreciation and thankfulness. And I think it's I guess it's one of those things that gets kind of tossed around a lot, that we should be grateful for things that we have, for the people in our lives, for all of those things, and I absolutely agree with that, just for the record. But one of the interesting things that I've noticed over this last week, and kind of having this stewing in the back of my head, was my own tendency to almost try and force myself to be grateful for things when I wasn't, which is an interesting, which was an interesting thing to play with. Is it's I kind of look at gratitude in a couple of different ways. And the first way, one of the ways, is that gratitude is like any other state. It's like happiness, it's like sadness, it's like anger, it's like fear. It is a physiological state and with an accompanying state of mind that has certain qualities that influence the way that we interact in the world and behave, and the way that we approach different things. And so in that sense of gratitude, looking at gratitude from that perspective, I tend to approach it as something that I do quite actively, and something that I do try and have a bit of influence over. So if I do find myself and in that sense, it's a really powerful tool. And sometimes when I find myself feeling frustrated with things, or just generally kind of not feeling great about something in particular, one of the ways that I will help myself out of that is, and into a slightly more resourceful place, I suppose, is to inquire as to at least to find things that I can be grateful for. And one of the ways I like to do this is the way that I phrase the question to myself. So rather than saying, what am I grateful for? Which is a fantastic question, by the way. And that's, I think, the standard one, is just, what am I grateful for? Like, what am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for this morning? What am I grateful for in this moment? One of the kind of sticking points I personally found with that, the particular phrasing of that, is that if I'm feeling, really, really down, if I'm if I'm feeling really stuck or really upset with something, or just not enjoying myself in general, it can be pretty hard at times. It can feel really difficult to find things that I'm grateful for when everything feels awful. So one of the ways I get around that is, rather than asking myself, what am I grateful for? I make it a bit more open, and to say to myself, if I were to be grateful, what could I be grateful for? And that doesn't have to be right now. That's just, that can be as broad. I leave that generally pretty broad. Like, cool, maybe there's nothing I can be great. Maybe I don't feel grateful for anything that's happening right now, but what could I be grateful for in my life if I wanted to be? Kind of taking the needing to change out of it, just by a little addition of like a couple of different words, and that makes like quite a big difference actually, because it's quite useful and works surprisingly well. And you might even just like to play with that at the moment actually. So if you like, you might like to do this with your eyes closed or your eyes open, but just ask yourself on one hand, what am I grateful for? And just notice what comes up when you ask, what am I grateful for? Immediate things that come up for me are like, oh, I'm grateful that I have air conditioning in this room right now because it's damn hot. And I'm grateful that there are people listening to me. Or, you know, at least there seem to be. I don't know, you might have everything on mute, who knows? Those kinds of things, they're like quite immediate. And so there's, thankfully a couple of things that I'm grateful for right now. And then I'd like you to like just kind of like drop that, shake it off if you will, have a sip of your tea or water or beverage if you brought it. And then just contrast that experience that you just had with what happens if you ask, when you ask yourself, if I wanted to be, what could I be grateful for? If I wanted to be, what could I be grateful for? And immediately my mind goes to far broader places than it did before. Like I could be grateful that I have a home to go home to. I could be grateful that I have a nice bed to sleep in, a roof over my head, that I don't have to catch public transport home, which is very, very good. That, you know, things are quite accessible around the place that I find myself right now. That it was a nice day today and that the sun was shining. It just kind of like, I don't know if anyone else is having those kinds of experiences. Please share if you, is that it tends to be the second phrasing that we just used, that's a bit more open and a bit more inviting. Well, I guess is more open and inviting, right? And just allows for things to be a bit more broad, a bit more open, and for your mind to generate ideas and things a little bit more easily. Which is, I guess, like kind of like segues me quite nicely into one of the reasons that I think gratitude is important. One second. Prue says, I guess there's a fine line between forcing gratitude and cultivating it. Yes, I absolutely agree. Actually, one of the interesting things that I noticed was that like having a lot of pressure on myself to feel grateful actually made it harder to be grateful, because it's, I guess my way of thinking about it as well is forcing yourself to be grateful for something that you're not grateful for is kind of like telling a child to apologize for something they're not sorry for, or telling anyone for that matter to apologize for something they're not sorry for. It's kind of just lip service and doesn't really do as much good. And I mean, look, the last thing you want to end up in is a place where you're resenting the fact that you're supposed to be feeling grateful about something, right? That could have the exact opposite effect of where you want to go, at least in my understanding. And hopefully that is not the case. A couple more there. Yes, correct. Much more invitational language, less force. Great. I'm glad you found the same thing. That's really, really cool. And if anyone else has anything as well, please pop it in there as well. But yes, so one of the things that I like about gratitude, one of the things I'm grateful to gratitude for, is And one of the reasons I think it's a good thing to cultivate and a good thing to invite into your life, into our lives, is that it brings a certain sense of ease to the day, to life, to experience. It kind of helps to minimize the resistance, minimize any resistance that might be there in a particular circumstance. And allow it to kind of come in and flow a little bit more easily. And I think a great way example of highlighting this, at least for me personally, is that whenever if I am feeling, say, for example, frustrated about something that I had to do, whether that be some chores or an assignment or doing some study or being stuck in traffic. Gratitude kind of inviting gratitude brings an opportunity to, I guess, relax the grip of those things. It doesn't make them go away necessarily, but it can make them a bit less intense at the very least, especially if it's just a very quick way to shift your focus so that things just don't bother you as much. And it's a really quick and really efficient way to do that. It also brings to whatever it is you're doing, whether that's driving somewhere in particular or having a conversation with someone, it brings at least it seems to me, to bring, what's the word? A certain relaxation to whatever it is, a certain allowing to it, which again just increases the ease with which that thing happens. Just kind of minimizes the effort that is kind of required for the thing that you're doing to happen the way you want it to. And another really cool thing that I've found about gratitude, and actually this is one that I've borrowed from I think from Dr. John Demartini, who I know Aaron and Ninja and a couple of the other guys here at MMT are very, very fond of, to say the least. But he has this idea that gratitude is a physiological state of basically having a balanced view, a balanced perception of things. So and he says that if you are stuck in, so if you're either infatuated with something, kind of overemphasizing how good it is, then you're not really for starters, you're not really grateful for it, but you're kind of stuck in an illusion about it, and you're denying the potential negatives of the situation, and vice versa. If you're focusing on all of the negatives of the situation, if you're stuck in frustration and fear and running away, then you're also not really getting a proper perspective of things. That you're kind of denying all of the potential positives there. And he talks a lot about bringing our perspective into balance, and by basically identifying all of the different things and recognizing, going through this process of okay, cool, what are all the positives of this thing? What are all the negatives of this thing, situation, person, etc., etc. And one of the really interesting things when you do that process of balancing is that there's a physiological response that he calls the tear of gratitude. So you literally, that's how you know that you are seeing this thing, whatever it is. I don't know what that was. Oh, sorry, my phone just did a thing. Anyway, you have this physiological response of a tear forming in your eye when you are actually when your perception is clear and balanced. And I guess that is one of the blessings that I see clarity bringing to our lives, is blessings gratitude brings to our lives, which is clarity. It's a sign that we're actually true gratitude is a sign that we are in a state of balance, in a state of harmony, and we're actually seeing things clearly as they are rather than being caught up in one story or another. And another really, and I guess like the last thing I would like to say on this before we jump into our little guided meditation, after I have another little sip of my herbs, which I'm very grateful for. They're very good. Yeah, the last thing I really wanted to kind of, which I personally think is one of the most amazing and one of the coolest and kind of like most profound parts of gratitude, is that the more you're grateful for, the more you get to be grateful for. And this is like kind of a philosophy or an idea behind why it's a good idea to have a gratitude practice. I think this is actually also from Dr. Demartini, but I'm not 100% sure. The more you are grateful for, the more you get to be grateful for. This is an idea, this works in like a couple of different ways, and it's pretty cool actually. So the way that the slightly more abstract metaphysical view is that the more, like basically the more you put out into the universe, this frequency, vibration, idea, state, whatever, coming from, the more you like interact with life from this place of I am grateful for the things that I have, I am grateful for everything that's coming my way, that creates, I guess, like a positive feedback loop with creation, with the universe, and saying, oh, okay, cool, you are grateful for these things, here's another thing, you're grateful for that, are you grateful for this? And it gives you the idea being that all of these other things come into your life that you can be grateful for. And that it's a way of that, like, the things you have, the good things in your life essentially multiply and quite quickly, which is pretty cool, right? I very much invite you not to take my word for that and to give it a try and see what happens, because it's kind of cool. And I mean, look, you really have nothing to lose, right? If it doesn't work, well, then life continues. And if it does work, you get a lot of really cool stuff to be grateful for, hopefully. And the other, so yeah, and the other, I guess, like more like practical day-to-day, like in the flesh kind of experience of this, at least for me, is that it's a funny thing, right? Because the more you are grateful for, the more you get to be grateful for. This comes back to what I was saying in the beginning about gratitude as a state, gratitude as a as a physiological and psychological state that you can be in, just like happy. It's a really interesting thing that you can try out for yourself. When you focus on something, or like, I mean, think about what time that you were happy, right? Particular time that you were happy, like there was something happening that you were particularly happy about. When you're in that place, when you're feeling those things, everything is colored by that. So other things, so when you're happy, the things that happen when you're happy tend to reinforce that feeling, unless they're kind of like really big, shocking things, or like kind of like something big breaks that. You tend to stay in that place, in that happy place. And gratitude is the same. As is like any, like, I mean, actually, before I go to that, I have another really good example of that is anger, right? Like if you're angry at something, if something, like if you're angry at something, something's making you feel really angry, and all of the things all of the thought patterns that are associated with that are happening, and all of the physiological sensations associated with that are happening as well. Everything else that happens, I don't know if anyone else gets this, I don't know for me, if I'm angry or frustrated at one thing, pretty much everything that happens thereafter, until I break out of that state to begin with, until something big enough and like to change it comes along, I am pretty much annoyed and frustrated and angry at everything. until I break that loop, right? And you can use that kind of thing, this like creation of loops, of the state loops, to your advantage. And gratitude is a great way to do that, because if you go back to, if I were to be grateful for something, what could I, if I wanted to, what could I be grateful for? Or if I were to be grateful for something right now, what could I be grateful for? What that does is that puts a filter on, that puts a different kind of filter on the way that you're seeing things, and you focus like, oh, I could be grateful for that and that and that, and then you start, the deeper you go into that, the more you do it in like a single session. So literally, the more things that you're grateful for, the more you get to be grateful for, because suddenly everything is colored by this lens of gratitude. And so everything you see is something you can be grateful for, everything you experience. And that, I think, is pretty cool. And I'm very, I really like that. I think that's, a pretty cool thing. Raphael says, the more you're grateful for, the more you get to be grateful for. Thanks, great way to recap. Thanks, Raphael. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. It's going to quickly polish off. It's going to quickly polish off my. I'm going to quickly finish off my herbs before we do a little meditation. Yep. Oh, that cup is now empty. And we've just had quite a nice little chat about gratitude. That hopefully, it seems that a few of you at least have found quite useful already, which is fantastic. And it is kind of getting on a Thursday night, at least at the time that I'm doing this live. So, since it's Thursday and we've already had our chat, and it is getting on, you might like to just make some little adjustments to make sure that you're nice and comfortable, because you probably know where I'm going with this. You might like to close down your eyes as well. Perhaps shake your shoulders a little bit and begin to settle in to wherever you find yourself right now. Perhaps you can notice your breath and begin to follow it as it moves gently in and out of your body. Perhaps you'd like to relax any tension that you notice anywhere. And just bring your attention inwards. As you float ever so softly into the space inside. We're going to go on a little journey now. And I don't know if you'll be consciously aware of everything that I'm saying as I'm saying it, or if perhaps the conscious parts of you might like to just let go a little bit and just enjoy the ride. or perhaps even take a complete holiday off somewhere nice and comfortable. Because it is the holiday season after all. And what better time to just let go and really enjoy a little moment to yourself. That's it. But whichever way you choose, or whichever way it just happens, just know that it can all happen effortlessly and easily. With no need. But I will invite you now to recall a specific time when you felt grateful. And just allow this specific time when you felt grateful to come fully into your awareness. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt at this specific time when you felt grateful. And just notice as you do this the things that you notice. Notice the quality of any images. How bright and vibrant are the colors, or are they black and white? Are you fully immersed in this image, seeing it through your own eye? Or can you see yourself in the image? Knowing that you need not change anything, you can just leave it all exactly as it is. As you continue to notice the things that you notice in this specific time when you felt grateful. And I wonder what you can hear in this specific time. Soft, loud or soft, even. Is there a rhythmic pace to them, or is it a bit more erratic? Are they deep or higher pitched? And I wonder what you feel in your body in this specific time when you felt grateful. Where in your body do you feel this? What can you notice in your body now as you continue to recall this time, specific time, when you felt grateful. And I'll just invite you now, only if it feels good and right and true, to play with a little experiment, knowing that if this doesn't appeal to you or feel good in any way, you can just stay instead. Stay with the specific time when you felt grateful. But if you are inclined to play, I invite you to take this specific time when you felt grateful and just imagine it as a little ball of light. A little ball of light, full of all the things that you see and hear and feel when you feel grateful. A little light of your own specific flavor of gratitude. And notice how, as you breathe in, your chest expands. And because your chest is expanding, the light too is expanding. The light too is expanding. How every inhalation can allow this light to grow, and as it's growing, it can expand bigger and bigger, and because it's growing bigger, it can also grow brighter and brighter. Allow this light to grow until it expands past your body and fills the whole room. This special light that comes from you, your own unique, specific kind of gratitude. I'll invite you now to send this gratitude out in whatever way feels good for you, to someone or somewhere or something that you would like to share this gratitude with. Perhaps that's a particular person. Perhaps it's a certain place that you've been or would like to go. Perhaps it's something very small, perhaps it's the entire universe. Because it's pretty cool actually, isn't it? How because your light can grow bigger, it can also continue to grow brighter. And how the more you give this light, the more you share your gratitude, the more gratitude you can have within you. Bring the light back to your body now. Bring this light all the way back to the center of your chest. Coming back to your body with that light, with this light. Your own special, specific flavor of gratitude. And I wonder just how easily you'll find it to connect with this as you go forward into your life. How much more easily you can give gratitude to those around you and to the things that come your way. When you have this now, and knowing that the more you give, the more you get to have. Slowly come back up into the room now, only as fast as feels safe and comfortable to do so, bringing all of the magic that you've found with you. Stretching your spine, moving your hands and feet and toes and fingers, and gently bringing yourself all the way back up into the room, only as fast as feels safe and comfortable to do so, until you eventually come all the way back into the room to rejoin us and to rejoin your third. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I'm very grateful to you for showing up for this. It's been really, really cool. I've really enjoyed this one actually. It always kind of surprises me how long I can monologue for. But yeah, thank you all for coming along. Keep up your meditation practice. I will be checking in next week again with how I went, doing a little bit longer practice. As always, I'd love to hear how anybody else is finding this as well. Keep up your practice, and just like inviting you to play this week with what happens if you change the way that you, or just ask yourself that question when things feel a little bit tricky. If I wanted to, what could I be grateful for? Who knows what could happen? Anyway, thank you so much again for coming along. It really has been an absolute pleasure. And I will see you all next Thursday evening, 7:30 p.m. Love you.